me personally, I like a big knot.
Welcome to Makers International, a podcast of makers from 3 countries, 2 continents, and featuring 5 guys separated only by the same language. Here's your host, Richard Morley.
Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good times, whatever time it is you are, wherever you are and listening. I'm joined, as always, by the very creative Mr. Chris Cute.
Hey, how are you?
I'm always thinking outside the box, Joe Whitaker.
You're right, Tom, yeah.
I'll send you love wherever you may be, Alan Robinson.
How are you guys?
And he's riding on the Sunshine Bus. It's Jamie Page.
How you going?
Good. How is everyone this week? What's everyone been up to and whatnot?
This week I've been doing a bit more of the breeze block carving. I've been trying to get a video done for Halloween. So I've been working on like a tombstone and I've carved it out to 3 breeze blocks that I glue together. So that's what I've been spending most of this week doing.
Awesome. Because I saw your owl carving that you did with the breeze block.
Yep.
That was, I've seen guys cut those with hand saws before on site, but I never thought about carving them. That's you all over, isn't it? You're back to copper pipes and nails as coasters, doing these crazy things. I want to cut your head open and see what the hell goes on inside there, Joe, sometimes, because that was seriously cool. I saw a little clip of your tombstone, but I haven't actually watched the video yet, so I'm looking forward to that.
Have you ever thought about getting like a concrete dye or anything like that, and maybe staining the breeze blocks?
I've painted them and they take paint really well, and it seems to stick on pretty good. But I have thought about perhaps carving the breeze block and then using that to cast a mould, and then you could perhaps use it for resin and stuff because it's so easy to carve. You could create what you wanted in no time and then just cast as many as you needed.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea.
That's quite, because those dyes tend to be powders though, don't they, for concrete?
Yeah, usually, yeah.
That's an interesting one. Go away, Joe, and go and work on that. That's even more busy now. So what are you up to then, Jamie? You're jumping in there.
What am I up to? Well, I've just put out a video on a mother and baby scroll saw project. One of my cousins is due to have a baby quite soon, so it was a baby shower the other day, and I did her a little plaque. So she really enjoyed that. So and my next project I should get on the lathe soon will be probably a spalted ash platter of some sort.
Did you buy that spalted, or was that a little surprise when
I did, yeah. No, I didn't actually realise it was spalted. I got it from a company called Yandles. Pay a certain amount of money, and it's kind of like a mixed goodie bag, if you like. You don't actually know what you're going to get until it turns up. It's not too bad, and it's actually really, really cheap. So I'd really recommend it. So yeah, it's quite good.
Excellent. I'm going to sort of cut you off there about recommending using those, because that will bring us nicely. We'll come back to you for that one.
Okay.
When we talk about our main topic for tonight. But what are you guys across the pond been up to this week? With you're all still alive and not covered in too much blood from the zombie apocalypse that I believe is going on over there. Is that right?
There is a zombie apocalypse here. I've been exceptionally busy this week. I had to have 2 collaborative videos out for this past weekend. I did the zombie challenge where I basically made a short film on a zombie apocalypse right outside my shop, and that's led into a part 3. People can look forward to that for Halloween. But I also made a Section 1 by Rush album art cover for the Makers Rock art album collab that I did with 5 other channels. We're doing a giveaway on it. I'll throw that into the show notes, so anybody who wants to go and check it out, there should be enough time. I believe it's a 1 to 2 week delay on the giveaways, so everybody can look forward to that.
Everyone likes free stuff.
Absolutely.
Well,
unfortunately, it's not international. Sorry, sponsor collab rules.
Yeah, I mean, it's always that sort of thing's always disappointing for the end people.
Always.
Just because, but you know, at the end of the day, it's free. These companies are, doing something good, so absolutely. I guess they can kind of make their own rules up and You know what I mean? Sending stuff all over the world can be so complicated.
And expensive.
And expensive as well, yeah. And, you know, they are businesses at the end of the day. So there's a little bit of, I know there's disappointment, but sometimes it's a bit of, you know, suck it up factor as well, I guess. And I guess we can say that in the UK because we always seem to miss out on the big US giveaways.
It's true. Every time I see a giveaway, my gut kind of sinks for you guys.
It's just the way the cookie crumbles, as some people say. How about you then, Chris? What have you been working on?
Well, I haven't been doing any giveaways, so I discriminate against everyone, I guess. Nobody in the world wins anything from me. Well, like Alan, I just finished up on Sunday, I finished up the Zombie Weapon Challenge, which was a fun video to do. I had a great time doing that. And I'm kind of sort of contemplating a video for the future, maybe not next week, but the week following. And it's going to be dependent on the conversation we have today, because the topic that we originally discussed to have today gave me a lot of ideas. I thought maybe I might be able to do something from where we go with this today. So I'm not quite sure exactly what I'm going to be working on next, but I think it may have something to do with what we talked about today.
That sounds pretty cool. Well, I haven't actually really been working on any videos at all. For the last week, I've been basically running my business and working for clients. So I've just been basically chasing my tail for about the last 10 days. I managed to get a few things done at home, which I did video, but I haven't had a chance to edit. I had some plastering work to do, some repair work for a friend of ours, actually. And whilst I was there, they said, "Can you take this apple tree down for us?" So I was like, yeah, why not? So I'm there with a pair of loppers and a chainsaw, basically removing this entire apple tree. So there might be a video. I videoed it, so you might want to watch it to see if I fall out of a tree with a chainsaw. Spoiler alert, I don't, by the way. But that might make a video. But if it doesn't make a video, then there's going to be something on the lathe because I've got a whole load of green apple wood to spin at some time. So there was that. I also had a course to teach down in Cambridge for the routing, and now I've got a plan for a 3-day show down in Exeter. I'm demoing for the router company that sponsor these router courses, so I'm literally just in between something all the time at the minute. But that's the way it goes, I guess. Coming up for Christmas and being busy is never a bad thing. I guess before we really kind of fly into this main topic, because I'm quite excited to find out what on earth Chris has got planned for the next couple of weeks with this video. But let's have a little shout out for our commenters. And actually, just before we do that even, I've got some good news about Nicola. Have you guys heard this? Nicola from last week?
Talk to me.
Well, she left us. She went down to Birmingham, I think it was, for the show. And she was crowned Irwin Tools UK and Ireland's ultimate tradesperson for 2016. She won the competition.
She won it.
Brilliant.
She won it.
Fantastic.
Number one.
Fantastic.
So not only did she get a £5,000 cheque presented to her in front of lots of people by a famous TV presenter in the UK, but she also gets an apprentice paid for the whole of next year, which
That's
is
awesome.
That's about £7,000 worth.
Great.
21 years old.
Yeah,
Exactly. You can't knock that.
Absolutely amazing.
Wow.
If
True
you are,
inspiration.
absolutely it is. I mean, it's if I'd have been in that position at that age, that would have been just, where would I be now kind of thing down the line. So Nicola, if you by any small stretch are actually out there listening, well done from all of us. That is
Well done.
pretty
well
cool.
deserved, obviously.
Beautiful.
But it gets better than that, because actually, do you remember she was talking about these Women in Business gala dinner and all the rest of it?
Mm-hmm.
She was up for 3 nominations.
Oh, yeah.
She took one of those home as well. So
Oh,
just
brilliant.
the
Oh,
icing on the
nice.
cake. That's a pretty
Never
good,
stopped her.
pretty
That
good
girl
going
is
there.
lucky.
She seriously is. That's just insane. But so yeah, well done, Nicola. Well done from all of us, and also a quick shout out to Sterling Davis, because I believe he's a little bit poorly at the moment. He's been in hospital.
Yeah.
So does anyone know any kind of details that they're willing to share or can share about that?
Yeah. I think so. His wife Sandra shared information, and Sterling also shared. He had gallbladder issues, and I believe he went in and had his gallbladder removed. But he's on the mend, and by the time this podcast airs, I do believe he'll be at home recuperating. So Sterling, God love you, man. I'm glad you can't pull that together. We were worried about you.
Yeah, that's always come back fighting fit, as they say. So big. Get well soon to him. So then it's on to our normal little segment for quick shout out for everyone who's been commenting and sharing and liking and doing all that good stuff across the various platforms. So Sharp Edge Woodworking, Rudyard Kipling, which I guess is an alias if my history is correct, Dave Ellingson and Azaleas over on SoundCloud. These are kind of the new commenters, but obviously we've also got those regular commenters that for people that are just constantly commenting on places like YouTube and the Facebook page and all that. So that, it's nice when people kind of, I guess, validate, is that the right word? What we're trying to do. So thanks for that. You are immensely useful, popular, and our friends. So we thank you. We thanked everyone. What is the topic for tonight? I believe we've got some bit of chat around where you get your stuff from. Is it something like that? Is that right, Chris?
Yeah, we had alluded to it back when we were doing the questions from the listeners, that we didn't go on with a certain portion of the questions because we said we could do an entire show on this topic, and so we decided to pick up the topic and do a show on it. And it's material sources, where we get ours, what we get them from, and because being such a cross section of individuals here, I'm sure we have a whole bunch of different things that we could draw from as far as that's concerned.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a few places that I use on a regular basis, but I feel like I've been talking too much already. So who wants to jump in with where they get their stuff from?
I think I've got quite a unique position compared to the rest of you because I don't actually have any vehicle of my own. So even if there was quite a close source for wood and other materials, I'm not really in a position to be able to pick them up. So all of my dealings, so to speak, are all online based. And when I very first started out, it was a case of obviously hitting Google, searching exotic woods, hardwoods, all stuff like that. And you find websites that cost an absolute fortune. If the price is sky high, then they might have cheap delivery. And then if the wood's cheap, then they've got sky high delivery and you've got to spend like £1,000 minimum to even get it to come out to you. But I managed to find in the end a site, and it was called Exotic Hardwoods UK Limited. They've got a great selection and they're really cheap. Now, don't get me wrong, the prices are high, but for what they do, it's cheap. And the delivery is around £15 starting, and you don't have to have minimum orders neither. So it's not a case of you've got to spend £300 to get something. You can buy a £20 scrap box, and then it's just £10 delivery on top, sort of thing. So it's really reasonable to get started.
Do they use a courier for that, or do they have like their own van that tips up at your place?
They use a courier for it, so yeah, it's just the courier prices. And luckily, they'll email you and let you know. So say if you ordered 13 kilo of goods and the delivery is costed for up to 20 kilo, then they'll email you and let you know, do you want to order anything else? It's no extra delivery. So that's really useful to know.
Yeah, that's quite handy. You don't have to then think about the most efficient delivery. But I'm a bit annoyed actually that you said they deliver, because I had this vision in my head of you on your push bike, like a window cleaner with like a big the crossbar or something.
Yeah, I don't think I could ever risk that. No. Yeah, so luckily they do deliver. I've got another site. It's another online site, and it's SL Hardwoods, but you have to buy more in boards with those, but they're still quite cheap.
They're the guys that did the walnut for your rocker, didn't they?
Sorry, no, I got those from Arnold Laver.
Arnold Laver, that's it. Yes. Yeah, I do remember now. Sorry, mate. Arnold
Laver is the only one that I can actually get to in person because it's not too far from me. But if you go on their website, you can type in your postcode if you're in the UK, find a local depot, and they've got quite a few hardwoods in stock, but it's always worth giving them a ring to make sure they've got what you're after before you head down there.
Okay, because you're in Wolverhampton, aren't you? So that's West Midlands.
Yeah, I'm in Wolverhampton.
I remember, is it last week or the week before? I think it was the week before we were chatting about this. And Alan, you mentioned being a bit guilty because you had a sawmill quite close to you. Is that right?
Yes, I have a sawmill not 10 kilometers from here. You can literally get almost anything, and it's fairly cheap too. I've spoken with a few guys in the US. and compared prices, and the prices on mine are always $1 to $2 less per board foot. And they will also deliver it to my house if I can't fit it into my car for free within 15 kilometers. It's just so easy and accessible for me. But I have two other sources as well I've always continuously used. I work in a steel shop by day. I can take scraps home with me all day long. It's all galvanized steel, mind you, but it's something to play with and something to work with. And there is a company downtown Stratford, Ontario here where I can get an endless amount of pallets anytime I should want them. But that kind of got me thinking, though, and this could be a stupid question, but do you guys in the UK, is it hard for you guys to get decent pallets to work with?
It depends where you look, really. I mean, they're not. I mean, you see, like on videos on YouTube when you see people driving around and you just see them lying on the side of the road.
Yeah, that's what it's like here. They're everywhere.
It's not really like that in the UK. It's sort of like they're either stacked up somewhere. Like,
what about a site like here we call it Craigslist and Kijiji? If you go to the free section, you constantly I swear about half the ads will say free deck lumber, free pallets. Just come to this address. You don't even have to speak to us. And you can just follow those ads all over town. Do you guys have services like that?
I mean, we do have like Free Cycle and Freegal, which are, a bit like, I guess, the Craigslist, the Kijiji type things. But I think it's that sort of the success or failure of something like that kind of boils down to individuals' mentalities. Because,
right.
A lot of people, I think, would be like, do you know what, we'll just like chuck it at the side of the road or chuck it in a skip or burn it. Because who's going to want that sort of thing?
Joe, you mentioned earlier that you have another site that you folks in the UK can actually use that is very similar to Craigslist and Kijiji.
Yeah, there is. There's actually a couple. There's a big site that is under a blanket, and it's always under used. So I can't really give out an exact address, but to give an example for myself, the site is usedwolverhampton.co.uk. So for people all around the UK, a simple Google search for used.co.uk should give your local area one. So if you're in London, it will probably be usedlondon.co.uk. But then there's also loot.com. Both of those sites have got free sections, they've got second-hand sections, and there's always people giving away old furniture, pallets, even scraps of wood sometimes, like for burning in the log burners that could be used for turning and stuff. So yeah, we have got very similar ones to Craigslist and Kijiji, definitely.
There's another one that I have actually used where I got an old. I think it was oak. It was like a sideboard, and it was actually on Facebook, and it's just called "It's All Free," and then your location after it. It was just a group made by someone, so I don't know if everyone wants to try that out as well.
Yeah, I've seen a few like that myself on Facebook. There's a lot of Facebook selling groups and free, like, come to take away sort of thing, yeah.
You can also use those, say, to put up a message on it that says ISO in search of barn board or whatever, and you'd be surprised. A lot of people have this, what they consider to be garbage, and they want it out of their garage. They'll say, come, please, take it away.
I mean, one thing we certainly have in the UK, I don't know about the US or Canada, but there's a lot of wood recycling places that are springing up. It's like a national scheme, that's the word I'm looking for, where dotted around in a lot of towns and cities. Like there's one in Cambridge, there's one in Oxford, there's no doubt in London, certainly Milton Keynes, where they have basically a van that goes around to all the like building sites. So the site will set aside all their timber, so all their offcuts of plywood, constructional stuff, pallets. They then chuck that into one skip that this van comes along and takes to their little depot. They denail it, plane it, sort it all out, and then you can rock up and buy it at a hugely discounted price because it's just come off a building site.
So they're coordinating the upcycling aspect of the lumber. They'll reclaim the lumber, or they're not recycling it. They're just grabbing what was ordinarily getting thrown away or not wanted, cleaning it up, and then they're offering it to you at a discounted price so that you can upcycle it into something else, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you might get like a long-term building site that will have a load of 18 mil exterior plywood been put up as sort of safety barrier shuttering, the site then finishes, the builders don't want to take it with them, so they just leave it. This place comes along, they cut it up into smaller pieces, or they'll denail all the 4x2s, whatever it is that's been left over. So it's real pot luck, but sometimes you can get some real gems in these places. And of course, it's, you know, they're dotted all around the country as well.
Yeah, when we were talking about the subject earlier, I actually made a list of places that I know of sources for wood, and I did it in actually 2 different categories. I did, if you have little to no money, where you can find free wood or free timber to work with, or, you know, very low cost anyway. And then also, if you have a little bit of money but want to save some money, and Al already covered that. If you got a sawmill next to you, then go find a sawmill, because you'll buy quality lumber at a sawmill at a much discounted price than what you would at a big box store, and things of that nature.
Yeah.
But if you don't have a lot of cash and you're just looking to go find some wood to work with, to play with, to knock about a bit, I have several pieces of advice for you to do. But some of them come with a caution. And the first one, Richard, you touched on, was construction sites. But you have to be very, very careful. Don't go running onto a construction site when nobody's on the construction site, because you will be trespassing and you will get arrested. Only go onto a construction site when there's workers present, and then ask one of the workers if it's okay if you go through their dump bin, because they actually throw away really nice pieces of large pieces of plywood, large pieces of 2x4, 2x6, things of that nature, because they're all cut offs and they don't need them, so they just automatically dump them in the thing. If you go by and get permission, construction sites, especially if you see somebody redoing a roof, because there's all kinds of plywood that is left over from doing a roofing project, that you can, if you get permission, get in and get some free plywood. And granted, you may not ever want to build furniture out of this stuff, but if you need material for shop jigs, things of that nature, and you don't have a lot of money and you're looking for some stuff, that's a good place to go. Another place to go that I found, and again, it's all area relevant. Some places allow you to take it, some places don't, is if you have a city waste facility where people might go to take their trash, rather than, you know, having the trash come picked up. Most cities have an area where it allows their citizens to go take their trash. If you can get onto that site, make friends with somebody on that site, you would not believe the stuff that people throw away. Alan just got done redoing, what was it, that outdoor bench that you did, Alan?
Oh, the cast iron bench, yes.
Yeah, people throw that kind of stuff away.
I actually found that on the free Kijiji site.
Yeah, and actually, but if you can get onto a city waste facility, and if they will allow you to take things from them, there's amazing material to work with there. The one that I have locally, actually, people take not only the forestry guys that come down and do the tree work, but also homeowners take out a lot of the trees and things of that nature, because it ends up winding up as mulch. But if you can get there, you can find some really nice pieces of wood that and save them from becoming mulch, and stick them in the back of your car, your truck, whatever the case may be. And if you're into milling your own lumber, which was my next step, the best thing you can do is mill your own timber, because it costs you absolutely nothing except the effort to do it. And that's what my thought was about my next video, Richard. I kind of wanted to do a video on showing people how they could take a log, milled into timber, and then I wanted to build a project out of the timber that I milled myself. It may be 2 videos, but that's what had led me to thinking that, because it really is. That's how I get a lot of my wood, because my backyard, I live in the woods. And so I have, obviously, you know, when Mother Nature says I don't no longer need this tree and it falls down, I take the tree and I cut it up and I make my own boards. You know, just because it's free. All it takes is a little effort. But these are all different areas that people don't have a lot of money or don't have any money, but want to go putting things together. There are sources out there where you can get free wood and actually work with it. And as Alan mentioned, pallets. But if you don't want to mess with the pallet and you want to go have nicer woods, you know what? Find a cabinet shop in your area. Cabinet makers use high quality wood, and they have a number of cutoffs. If you can go into a cabinet shop, a place that builds cabinets for a living, and ask them if you can have their cutoffs, sometimes they'll give them to you for free. Sometimes they'll sell them to you at a ridiculously low price. But you can get walnut, zebra wood, things of that nature. I mean, really, really nice pieces of wood. Not large pieces, they're cutoffs. But understand that those materials are available to you, and they're inexpensive, if not free.
Yeah, and also, I mean, from the guys taking trees down, building sites with skips, and also the joinery shops. I've in the past done all 3 of those, and the way I've done it is I've actually spun it around. Yes, these guys are doing me a huge favor because I'm getting free or cheap timber, but you spin it on its head and you apply it to them as I'm doing you a favor, because if you're on a building site, you pay for these skips and you want to get the most into that skip to get off your site. So if I come along and take some free stuff that you're just going to pay to get rid of, I'll take it off you for nothing, and you've got more space. With the guys cutting the trees down, exactly the same thing, because they get to a point where they cut the logs up into sections that can't go in that mulcher, and they've got to carry it all the way onto the back of their truck and then drive it to the other end and do whatever they've got to do with it. If you want to take 2 logs, those guys haven't got to then hump 100 yards up the road to get on their lorry. They're going to say, yeah, by all means, take as much as you like, because that's saving me hassle. And kind of the same with the joinery shops as well, because at the end of the day, they do that job, that bit of furniture. They've finished with that timber, and it's now space. Space in everyone's workshop is the most precious thing. So once you get rid of that waste, because that's basically what it is, those cut-offs or the overage that you bought, you want it out of the way so you can get the next job in. So if you want to take it to that route, that's a very cost-effective, and obviously, you know, what you get at the end of that conversation could be some really nice timbers. So definitely would advise people and encourage people to do that for sure. Yeah.
That sounds like a good idea. There's one tip that eluded me with mills that I use often. And I've asked my mill if they're the only ones who do this or if it's a typical thing. And they say it's quite typical. If you go into a mill and ask them about shorts, like ask them for the short room, they often have everything sold typically in 8-foot boards. If you ask for shorts, it's maybe 2, 3, 4 inches shorter than 8 feet. You're going to get a discount on it. When I go to the mill, I go straight for the short room. They have a big variety of species, and it's much cheaper than going into their main room and buying from that stock.
Yeah, because obviously they've got to sell it at, you know, however many feet for that board. If it comes under that, they can't then sell it as 8 foot long because it's only 7'5" or whatever. So
their main room is all sold in 8-foot boards. So you go into this short room. They don't just charge you 3 inches cheaper. It's significantly discounted at my mill, at least.
Do they sell it in sort of unit lengths, as it were?
You can buy in unit length, but they do it. It's 2 separate rooms. It's basically like a unit length room and an 8-foot board room and a short room. It could be a Canadian thing, so everybody's probably thinking like,
no, that's pretty typical with sawmills all across the board, Alan. Because these guys are selling their material in standard 8-foot lengths, whatever the case may be. And if they have short lengths, the contractors that come in that buy the bulk of that material, they're not interested in the shorts. They need the long ones because that's what they buy.
And you'll also find boards with defects in the short room as well. And me personally, I like a big knot in the middle of I make small projects, right? To me, it's nothing but character. So I'm happy to buy those ones at a cheaper cost.
And you're more likely to be able to cut around those defects if you're only making small projects. In the sawmill side, if there's a couple near me, and one in particular, there's a guy, Nigel Fleckney, his name, and he's been working at this sawmill I think his entire life. What he doesn't know about timber is just not worth knowing. And it can always be, to start with, a little bit sort of daunting. I mean, I can remember the first time I ever went to an actual sawmill, I felt like I should know more than I did. And it was a quite intimidating process. But try and not be intimidated and just ask the guy. If you've got a question, just ask the guy a question and soak up the information. Because it was kind of like what we were saying before, when you're talking to these people about a common interest, they don't care that you don't know something. They'll tell you because they're interested in it. And it all becomes a much more pleasant process.
And it does become, Richard, that's funny you should mention that, because I was very intimidated the first sawmill I went to as well, because I went in there because I'm used to buying, 3/4 inch plywood and, 8-foot lengths. And then I go into a sawmill and they start telling me they're selling me lumber or timber by the board foot. And they start talking to me about, 4/4, 6/4, 8/4, and I don't know what in the heck they're talking about. What are you talking about? 4/4, 6/4? I didn't know. I was very young at the time, and I hadn't put 2 and 2 together to realize they're talking about 1/4 inches. 4/4 is an inch, 6/4 is an inch and a half. But it can be intimidating. But you shouldn't be intimidated because, like you said, I walked in, I didn't know a darn thing, and I asked the guy who was trying to sell me this stuff. I go, what are you talking about? And he actually sat down and explained to me how to calculate board foot, and also what the quarters and the wood meant, and blah, blah, blah. I mean, he looked at me like I was a noob, because at the time I was. But you know what? You're absolutely right. He was more than willing to help me out.
Do you know what? I still cannot work out this whole board feet thing. I know hardwood is done in cubic measurements, but I don't buy cubes of timber. I buy planks. So I just need to know how thick I need it and how long I need it and how wide I need it. And then I just say, how much is that?
I know, I hear you. Because sometimes you just have to trust the person who sells it to you. Because if you don't get it, you don't get it. But I would highly suggest you educate yourself so you don't get taken advantage of. And you probably wouldn't get taken advantage of, but you never know. I'm always a little paranoid about that. But on the converse side, where would you not want to shop for wood? And, if you're looking to get a bargain, I know Joe has actually mentioned that he's found a good deal online. Personally, my experience with online is if you're going to buy woods online, you're going to pay a premium. And the big box stores, you're going to pay more than a premium. Because the way they sell oak and maple around here, it's outrageous to think. If I was going to go build an entire oak dining table, and I was going to buy all the oak exclusively from like a Home Depot or a Lowe's, or what is the big box that you have in the UK?
B&Q.
A B&Q. Do you know how much money it would cost to actually build that dining room table out of the oak that they sell? Oh my word! These are not places that you typically want to go to and look for a bargain. Even though Joe says he found a good source for himself, so good for you. I haven't ever found one online that I thought was let's put it this way, discounted. It always was a premium price. I mean, has anybody else had an experience like that, or am I just sitting here alone by myself?
Well, as far as you call like the big box stores, like our DIY hardware stores, so to speak, we don't even stock hardwoods, so to speak. In B&Q, they've recently started stocking some of the short little offcuts of oak sort of thing that they're selling you. You can make cutting boards and stuff like that. But definitely their price is the top end of what you really want to be paying. But the trouble is, damn often what you're left with if you've not got a very diverse area in terms of suppliers and stuff. Like a lot of the builders merchants close to me charge the same as the likes of B&Q and Wickes, so half the time I do just end up going there for my plywoods and my CLS, I like my 2x4s and stuff like that, so I think it's luck of the draw in your area most of the time.
Do you know the secret with those builders merchants and places like that, Joe? What you do is you work out what builders merchants you've got in your area. So there might be, say, 4. You ring up the first one, you say, right, how much? I'm after just one sheet of 18mm birch ply or whatever it is you want. And they says, oh, it's this much. Right. And you say, is that, first thing you ask the guy is, I assume that is inclusive of VAT. And he'll go, oh no, that's extra. And then you go, oh, that's quite expensive. Okay, that's more than I thought it was going to be. That must be just your normal punter's price. What's your trade price on that? And he'll drop it a bit. Okay, thanks very much. Then you ring up the next guy and you do exactly the same thing, but you add in, right, the quote I've already got is, and you take a couple of quid off what the last guy sent you, and you bounce between the two. And if you work it right, you can get a significant discount on, whatever it is you're buying, because each company, yes, they've got their margins and they've got their absolute, they can't go any lower because they're not making any money price. That's fine. But what you ask for first off, by bouncing backwards and forwards, you end up going ding, 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 ding. And if you actually need a couple of sheets of something or a few lengths of whatever it is, that then starts to really add up and you end up paying maybe 2/3 what you originally quoted. That's how you get the best prices out of the builders merchants.
Great, I'll have to give that a try.
Okay, so what if you're like me and you've only got one around you?
Well, then you just ring one that's further afield.
All right, fair
because that's always the way. But you got some cracking deals on your. Didn't you get from Yandles a bargain bag you were telling us about?
Yeah. Well, it was like I was saying, they sell. It's like a mixed bag. You don't know what you're gonna get. You basically pay a certain amount of money. I think there was like £10, £15, £25. It goes up and up and up. And you pay, like I say, you pay a certain amount of money, and the bag just turns up at your door. And you open it up, and I've had ash, spalted ash, maple, pear, like so many beautiful pieces of wood. And it all comes like in a wax coating. So it's obviously been dried out properly, looked after. And you take back the wax, and it just looks absolutely beautiful, the wood. And it's really looks and feels like top quality wood. And it's really, really nice prices as well.
That actually sounds fun.
But, yeah. And actually on the website as well, they sell I've not actually got any yet. But they actually sell bells and things like that. And it's actually a UK company as well. And it's actually not far away from me. I've actually only just come across it.
I think the handles, when they originally started up, it was like one guy in his shed after do you remember the 1980s hurricanes we had?
Yes, I do, yeah.
So Alan and Chris, probably won't know about this, but I think it was 1987, 88, something like that. We had like these like hurricane of epic proportions for the UK. And it just blew over all the trees. And there was this guy down in the south of the UK just went around picking up all the trees and selling on all the wood to the wood turners and stuff. And now he's built this enormous empire out of supplying timber to people. So talk about using nature at its finest.
Yeah. It was so bad that table in our back garden fell over.
Because you guys have got sort of Rockler and Woodcraft in the States, haven't you?
Yeah, you're not going to go to those places and look for a bargain. That's another place. I mean, they're going to sell the wood for what it is worth. And I'm not saying they're overpriced. I'm just saying they're not going to underprice it. They're going to sell it for what it's worth. You're not going to get a deal there. You're going to pay face value for wood. Let me ask Alan real quick, because the only thing he's popped in about. I was curious, Alan, up in there in Canada, is the only place you get your timber or your lumber, you only get it from sawmills, or do you have local stores that you go to as well, or what?
No, we do have Home Depot and Home Hardware that does sell lumber, and plenty of it. But just like yours, only once did I walk up and just take one quick glance at the price, and I couldn't believe what I was looking at. I turned around about face and I was out of there. I've never once bought from a big box store, and I never will. I mean, I go to the mill, sure, it's rough, but I've got the machines I need to mill it myself, to plane it down and whatnot and make it look just as pretty as it is at Home Depot for a small fraction of the cost. So that's not ever going to happen. But yeah, we do have the same here.
I'm just curious. If Alan's got access to all of this kind of wood, why does he only ever use walnut?
Well, I might have a bit of a problem, guys.
It's that whole junkie thing kicking in again.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I'm still waiting for you guys to help me.
So you buy mostly rough sawn stuff from the mill, do you?
I get 100% rough sawn, 100%.
And I'm assuming you've got a thicknesser and a jointer, planer, and all that. So what would you do if you found a really nice piece of timber that was either too big or too small to get through your machinery? Kind of a loaded question, by the way.
Well, I just keep away from it if it's wider than 12 inches. But recently, my boss gave me, he milled a whole bunch of ash trees in his back field, and he gave me one of the trees. I have it drying out here right now, and I've actually been kind of looking at it every now and then, thinking to myself, how am I going to mill this down? Some of them are 15, 16, 18 inches wide. They still have a live edge on them. I don't have what I need to mill this lumber down, so that's going to be a slight problem in the future. I'll be watching a few videos on that.
Which is an awesome segue into what we were going to talk about next, because I bet you do have what you need to get that thing down. Hand tools, my man. Hand tools. Uh-huh. And if you don't have them for Christmas, ask for them, because you can do anything that you do with machines with hand tools. Granted, it's a lot more effort, but you can plane a board down with a hand plane as easily as your thickness planer. Well, not as easily, but as efficiently as your thickness planer. Or, well, maybe not even efficiently. The end result can be just as good. Let's put it that way. And so if you don't have a lot of money and you don't have an electric or a machine thickness planer, you know what? And if you really want to have a flat plane board, pick up a hand plane. And James Wright is out there listening right now, and he's shaking his head going, "Thank you, Chris. You're absolutely right." Because you can do it. It takes some effort, but you know what? There's gratification at the end of the day, right?
It's definitely worth the effort, yes. I mean, this is a giant load of lumber, and I'm going to love working with it. It's got to come down somehow.
Well, I'm going to counter, Chris. I'll see you your hand tools, and I'll raise you a router.
There you go. Actually, absolutely.
Because that was sort of what I meant with a loaded question. Because obviously, there's probably people out there listening that don't have a thickness planer or a jointer. I mean, and even if they have, what do you do if the bit of timber's too big or even too small? A lot of people forget that you can use a router for jointing and thicknessing and surfacing any size of wood, whether it's a tiny little piece that's too dangerous to put through a machine, or whether it's too big to actually physically get in there as well. So that's another option.
You're talking about using the router in conjunction with like a router sled that you would build for it to get an even Even plain across the top of the wood?
Yeah, basically, just like you sort of use it like two skids, and then it just rides across the top and it flattens it. But like I said, you can do that with a tiny little piece of wood, or you can just make the sled or the skis as big or as small as you need to do whatever job you need to do. I mean, I just haven't got the patience to do that by hand myself, particularly when I've got a rattle that'll do it a lot quicker.
I'll let you in on a secret. Neither do I, but I wanted to say it. So that's why I brought it up. I am not hand planing a board flat. It's just not happening. But you could do it. I just want to throw it out there.
I actually really like the idea of it, but I can't sit there with a jack plane for 3 hours straight with my DeWalt 734 3 feet to the left of me just staring at me. Why? It's just not going to happen.
It makes no sense. Yeah,
you know that machine's giving you evils, don't you?
Oh, it's making fun of me. It's
what are you doing?
Mocking me mercifully. I understand why they do it. I'm not poking fun at them, but it's not happening.
Do you guys have like wood fairs in North America?
Explain what that is, because I don't understand what you're talking about.
Here in the UK, and I've been to two now at the same place. So National Trust is a lot of kind of people that are into old stately homes. You must have watched Downton Abbey.
Okay. If you say so.
So you get like a big stately home that was big like a couple of 100 years ago, owned by a family. They were all super posh, upper class types, and they had a massive estate. So the National Trust will go in after the family's gone bankrupt and sold the house off, and for the kind of the heritage of the house and English history, they then buy these areas like famous buildings or big estates, and they look after them, and they'll open them up to the public so you can go and wander around and look at the pictures and blah blah blah.
We have the same thing. It's called the Historical Society.
Okay, so similar sort of setup. Anyway, there's up and down the country, they sometimes have these fairs, because obviously they've got to pay for the upkeep of these old buildings, and they try and get money out of people however they can. So you can basically become a member of English Heritage and wander around these houses at discounted price and all the rest of it. Anyway, there's one down, it's near Bury St Edmunds in East Anglia in the UK. And every year they open up for one weekend, like part of the estate. And where they've got these old trees that are absolutely enormous, as part of the management of the estate, they cut the trees down and then they plant new ones, and it's all conservation and management and stuff like that. But they sell on these trees at a fair just for one weekend of the year. So you buy these trees, you know exactly where they've grown, you know exactly where they've come from, and the sort of the pedigree of the tree. It's all pre-slabbed up. It's all rough sawn, but it's all ready slabbed up. And you would not believe the cheap prices. If you can get down there and pick what you want, you just search through these huge slabs. And it's dirt. I think I paid about £15, and I don't know what that is in dollars at the moment, but that's pretty cheap.
Quick question, because you're talking about historical sites where there's heritage to where this timber came from.
Yeah.
Now, I have a lot of friends, one friend in particular, Mark Christopher, who turns pens. And he turned a set of pens out of an owl would be familiar with, out of wood from the Canadian ship, the Blue Nose. They were redoing it, and the original timber that came off of the ship, he turned into pens. And the wood was much more valuable because it had that historical significance. I mean, Can you get the same kind of price from the timber that you're talking about that are coming from these estates that are well known across the nation or things of that nature, or is it just pretty much you're just getting wood?
Well, yeah, I mean, you're pretty much just getting wood. But what you can do is if you can say to your customer, if you're looking to make a dining room table, and they want it out of a particular type of wood, and you can go to that customer and say. And this is something that Nigel does at his sawmill. He knows exactly where the tree has come from. And he'll say, right, well, this horse chestnut tree, and I bought some from him a year or two ago, some horse chestnut. He said, this tree was planted in 1523 by the 17th Earl of Montague. You're not just buying a plank of wood, you've got a bit of history there. So
you're selling a story. Yeah,
basically, or it's being added to what you're paying for, but you're still getting a really cheap price in what is basically a rough sawn slab of oak or hornbeam or whatever tree it was for the place. I didn't know if you guys have those in the States.
If you know what, Richard, I don't want to say we don't, But if we do, I'm unaware of it. It's not publicized in the circles that I travel in, so I am unaware. It's possible, but I'm unaware. Alan may have something like that up in Canada. I'm just not familiar with it down here in the States. There probably is, but I'm just not aware.
The Historical Society here, but I've actually never even heard of this before. But it does make perfect sense. Remember earlier when I said a good option is to go on Facebook sites and put in search of, barn board or whatever. The one time I did that, I got a response, and I got I think about 4-foot boards, and I was so happy to get a story from the gentleman who gave it to me saying these boards came from one of the very first properties here in Stratford, in my town. I just thought it was an amazing story behind the wood itself, and I actually held on to it for a little while based on the story, just waiting for the right project.
Well, that's why I was asking because there has to be some kind of a marketing twist that you could do with anything that you made out of that might have some kind of intrinsic value to a local customer who might go, oh, that is really cool. And it may allow you to maybe give it a little bit more of a price than you would to somebody who's just buying regular wood. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, it kind of goes back to, if you've got a neighbour that's having a tree cut down and you say to the neighbour, can I have the wood? And then I'll turn you a bowl out of it. So you've got a fruit bowl on your dining room table that's made out of the tree that used to be in your front garden or whatever.
Yeah, I actually, you said that. I actually did that not so long ago. They had a tree in their back garden, and it was huge. It was, and it ended up getting locked down. But I turned them like a little lidded box out of it, just so they could have something that they had in from that tree that's been there. I mean, since I was a little kid, but she nearly burst into tears when I give it to her.
Yeah. I can see that kind of thing being a real twist for the craft fair kind of areas, because they tend to be slightly more localized. So if you can get a locally grown tree and turn, like Chris was saying with the pens, or like you were saying with your lidded box, that I think could work very well in a local craft fair. That's sort of digressing away from where you get it from, but it's another plus point, I guess. Well, I think we've got a slight advantage which is overlooked in the UK to that which, say, Chris or you, Alan, have got, because the UK is a small place. And as a result of that, things are closer together. I don't know whether I'm just lucky, but certainly here in the East Midlands, near Northampton, there are at least 3 places where I can go and be quite confident to pick up some very exotic woods. Padauk, Wengi, zebra wood, Australian she oak, just off the top of my head, from a place in Netherhayford, which is run by the Jesus Army. So they run all the sawmills and they actually import all this timber in. And it's not just rough sawn either. There's a lot of planed, either 2 faces or all 4 squared edge timbers in enormous sizes, not just little bits, as well as obviously your pen turning stuff. So I think those are a good place to look as well, actually, for things like that. So I think we're probably going to leave all these in the show notes, because there's a lot of information that people can probably feed off on this. Mm-hmm. But also, I think if you are out there listening and you've got a place which is, I don't know, not where any of us lot are from, add to it, leave a comment of where you get your good timbers from, and then people can look through those and maybe pick out some new places where they can pick up some new sources of materials.
Yeah, I've got kind of a hive mind question regarding that, because we've talked about milling and refining our own stock a lot here. Let me just throw it up to you guys. What kind of tooling, when you stop and think about milling up your own wood, or even if you buy it rough sawn, you need it cleaned up, and somebody who's listening to us who may not know the type of tools that they would need in order to do what we've been talking about. Alan, I guess I'm going to ask you, buddy, because I know you do a lot of this. What tools do you find are invaluable to you in order for you to get your rough sawn stock down to usable material?
I have a very specific method I follow every time, as to why I'm very, very quick, and it goes very, very easy. I edge joint. I put it through the table saw, taking off the other edge. I put both sides through the planer, and I'm ready to start a project. It's very quick, very simple, and I'm ready to move on.
For me, myself, I would highly recommend that people look into the cheap combination machines, because in the UK, they're very easy to get hold of. So myself personally, I was looking online, like everything else I get, it's always online. But a cheap combination thickness planer and jointer, and it was on offer at the time, and it was £115. And I factored in how much I was paying for ready planed wood and ready jointed wood compared to rough sawn, and I was sure that in a few months this would pay for itself. So literally, I'll buy in rough sawn wood. I'll rough cut it to the length that I need, so I don't have to plane the entire board. I'll run it through my thickness planer first to get rid of the rough stuff. Then I'll do like what Alan was saying. I'll joint the one edge, get rid of the other edge on my table saw. But you don't really always have to resort to that extreme. You're using the table saw and stuff. Just get rid of all the rough stuff off it, make it nice and square, and go to town with what other tools you've got. Right,
because I like doing kind of. I don't like buying big loads of lumber at one time because I only have my car to work with. So I typically I'll buy about 6 to 8 boards, and for me, I just find it easy to just do them all at once, get them underneath the workbench, ready to go for when I need them in the future. That's 6 to 8 boards that last me minimum of a month to 2 months. So it's a pretty quick, easy process for me.
Because I do my own milling, I go from tree to board. I tend to employ a bandsaw a lot more than what other people would, and I don't do. I have done like large 6-foot pieces on the bandsaw that I have. I have a 14-inch bandsaw, and trust me, a 6-foot piece on a 14-inch bandsaw is not an easy task. So I tend to do my own boards that are just a little bit larger than what you might use for firewoods, and I normally try to square up 2 sides of a log using a chainsaw. And then I'll put the log in like a bandsaw sled, and then I'll cut the boards down to a certain thickness, always thicker than I wanted. And from there, I go to a jointer. Then I go into the planer to get it down to the thickness I want. But like Alan, when I do my jointing, I only joint one edge on a jointer, and then I take it over to the table saw, and I joint the other edge parallel to what I just did on my jointer. Then I run it through the thickness planer and get it down to the stock that I want to. So I guess there's 5 tools that I use: a chainsaw, bandsaw, jointer, planer, table saw. That sounds like a lot, but that's kind of what I use to get a log into a board.
You living in the woods, have you ever considered making a chainsaw mill?
I have, and I would, except because I live in I live in the woods. But being in the woods, you have to understand it's very quiet where I live as well. And even though my neighbors may be, 10 acres away from me, running a chainsaw and a chainsaw mill, that noise carries, and I don't want to become a nuisance to my neighbors. And if I could get away with, if I could afford like a wood miser, I would definitely do that. But I don't know that I really want to go firing up a chainsaw and taking off my neighbors, even though they are that far away. Because I think it would. I have some older folks that live around here, and I think that would annoy them, and I don't want to go do that. So yeah. I just limit. But I could. But Alan, yes, I could. But I haven't. I have thought about it, but decided against it for that reason.
That's understandable. I feel bad for John Heiss's neighbors.
I think if there's anyone out there who's thinking, but I don't have the space, the time, or even the inclination to go from a rough sawn to a plane, and kind of process my own materials, then don't be put off by paying a little bit extra and buying some ready machined dimensioned materials, because I think I get the impression a lot of people are put off using some really nice exotic woods because it's rough sawn, and they're genuinely missing out. But if you do feel like tackling it, then don't forget your router, because actually a router can be a jointer. It can also be a surfacer, so a thicknesser, and you can really go with a jigsaw to rough dimension a rough sawn board, and then use your router with a little sled to whatever size you need, and you've got basically your own temporary mill processing facility. So
absolutely. And I was like,
go at it.
Yeah, and Richard, you're absolutely right. It's just that and you're the router guy. I mean, you'd be the one to think about that. And I've never done it that way. And so, you kind of get stuck in a certain way of doing things. But one point I did want to make, though, and obviously, sometimes it takes money to save money. I can tell you with all the lumber that I have milled, I guarantee you I've paid for my bandsaw several times over already just by milling my own material. But I did have to pay the money up front for the bandsaw. But in the long run, I've actually bought the bandsaw back a couple times by doing it myself.
Yeah, I mean, it's always the way, isn't it? When you finally bite the bullet and buy something like that. I mean, I've got a thicknesser, and I've got an edge jointer as well. But I actually don't use them very often. Not because I use the router more often. If I don't need to, I won't. But I don't generally get into a situation where I need to do that. But when you do, you think, oh, I'm glad I did buy that when I did buy it. It's the devil you know rather than the devil you don't, I guess, at the end of end of that. So, what is everybody watching at the moment? What's going on in your YouTube lives?
I am watching a great guy, although very strange sometimes.
More strange than you? Really?
Yeah, a lot stranger than me. His name's Steve Twidell. He's got a YouTube channel called Temple Boy Turnings. I often go back to his YouTube channel because he does some very unique projects. The one I watched more recently was it was called a laced form using textile eyelets and leather, and it was just incredible.
Yeah, they look like corsets.
He also turns CD cases into goblets, and it's just absolutely unbelievable. The more recent one he done was he turned a pen out of boiled candy, which was quite a sight to see.
That's giving Peter Brown a run for his money, isn't it? By the sounds of things,
isn't it, Joss? Yeah, but he's a great guy, and I thought he deserved a bit of a shout out. I can't also mention Steve without mentioning UKIS, or the UK and Ireland Woodturning Symposium, as he's one of the organisers. It's just they've released a date, which is the 15th and 16th of July, 2017, at the Hilton Hotel in Coventry. So yeah, there you go. We'll leave the links in the show notes for Steve's Facebook page.
You mentioned the Hilton at Coventry. That is a very nice hotel. That was the hotel I was staying at when I was down in Birmingham the other week. That's a very nice place to go. So if you can, go to that.
Yeah, I think Joe went last time, I believe.
Yeah, I went last year. Well, yeah, this year just going, actually. Yeah, it was a brilliant event for the first one. And like you say, yeah, the hotel's really nice there.
Excellent. I'm glad you did that, actually. I'm going to go and find those videos. They sound quite intriguing. How about you, Alan? What are you up to watching at the moment?
Well, I spent all morning watching the zombie weapon challenge put on by Mike Fulton. And as spectacular as they all were, there's one that stood out to me I thought was really, really cool. That was Joe Basement Woodworking's crucifix build. And what was different about his, a lot of guys made clubs with saw blades in them like I did, or, axes and things like that. And they were all very cool again. But his had 3 spikes that come out of it, that each time you bashed the zombie in the head, the spike removed from the piece and stuck inside the zombie's head. And he gave a demonstration on it with a pumpkin. And
I was going to say, whoa, where's this going?
He did not, in fact, go and kill anybody with the weapon at the end of the video. But I just thought it was really, really cool. So
Joe's Basement Woodworking. I hate that guy.
He hates you too.
Get over yourself, Jamie. No zombies were harmed in the filming of this video.
No.
What about you, Joe? Have you been making any headway?
I've been watching a lot of Matthias Wandel's videos recently. I tend to go back and watch Matthias's videos, even though I've seen them numerous times. He's like the mad mechanic of the woodworking world. He just makes all his own machinery, everything like that.
Definitely.
But his recent video that he put out, he's made wooden ball bearings. And he literally, for the balls themselves, he used glass marbles. But then for the casing, it's all made out of wood, and plywood he used, I think, as well. And he turned it on the lathe that he made for himself. So there's plans for you to make the lathe if that's what you was interested in doing. And he's just, you can get lost in his videos, you can work your way through it. You start thinking, I want to make that, I want to make that, I want to make that. And it runs away with you. But yeah, if you haven't heard of Matthias before, I'm sure you have, but if you haven't, you got to go and subscribe to him. Matthias Wandel on YouTube.
If you haven't heard of Matthias, then you've been living under a rock, I think. Yeah, definitely. He's a rabbit hole of his very own on YouTube, I think. So, yeah. How about you, Chris? What have you been watching?
Well, quickly, I'll go through mine. And like Alan, I've been following Mike Fulton because of the Zombie Weapon Challenge. And Mike, great idea. Let's do this again next year because that was a lot of fun. There was some really stupendous videos put out. I want to mention my buddy Alan. His video I thought was great. I mean, I thought that was a great video. Alan did a great job on that.
Thank you.
Oh, you're more than welcome. But I also want to mention Jason McGinn. He did an awesome video where he made a zombie decapitator. And that's all I'm going to say about it. You just go watch Jason McGinn, McGinn's Woodshop. Go watch the Zombie Weapons Challenge and go check out what Jason made. And I can tell you why it's so awesome. is because I was on a hangout with Jason when he actually made this. He made this thing in an afternoon, and it's impressive. You got to see this. So that's all I'll say. McGinn's Woodshop. Go check it out.
Good stuff. Well, I've been watching, I think probably because I've been so busy, I'm still playing catch up on my horrendously long watch later list. But I saw one of Chris Pine's latest ones, which I think he did for Sterling's Pallet Wood Challenge. And he made this enormous, I think it would look like about 3 or 4 feet diameter pallet wood clock with these enormous hands and these rusty old numbers. But what stood out for me was he did the whole kind of paint it, paint it a different colour, sand it, different colours, greys and reds and whites. And I was watching it thinking, I'm not quite sure how this is going to turn out. And then when it was like, wow, yeah, that seriously works. And it's something that I kind of want to now go away and try that. And also, did anyone see Steve Ramsey's update for the Maker's Care? Because I said we should all make something, and I still intend to make something, and I just haven't had time. So I watched it because it was like, when's the deadline? And I think I've still got some time to throw something quickly together for that. So,
do we know when the deadline is for that?
I think it was the 28th of this month. I just draw a picture of something and post it. I've got to do something. I promised to do something, and it's definitely on my to-do list. But it's going to be cutting it fine for the 28th. I have to say. But right, so that's what we're all watching. That's what we're all about. Where can we be found? I'll tell you where we can be found. We can all be found right here, live, for a live Halloween chat stroke show. I mean, Jimmy's scary enough at the best of times, but it's going to be, this is right. I'm not just building this up to nothing, am I? We are doing a live Halloween thing.
October 30th, we are going live for the podcast. Not 100% sure on exactly how we're doing it yet. We'll get some details up during the week on our Facebook page and on Twitter.
It will be Sunday, and it will be around 4:30 in the afternoon Eastern time, which would make it 9:30 in the UK. And it will be live, and it will be on YouTube. And we will have some guests, and we will record that, and then we will upload it into SoundCloud and iTunes to be released later in the week. But if you want to catch it live, we're going to be doing that next week on YouTube.
And last but not least, we are very excited about it.
It's going to be scary. It's going to be scary for me because it's not just because it's Halloween, it's because there's going to be actual people watching us, and I have no idea what I'm doing. So I've really got to do my homework between now and then, and I just do not have time. So what happens, I guess.
So that's definitely a reason to tune in.
Just wear a costume so nobody knows it's you.
I'll just, a sheet with 2 holes, I think, and I'll pretend it's someone else. So I can be found at BrainFizz UK. You can find my name, Rick Morley, on YouTube for my channel, and that'll take you to all my social medias. But what about everyone else? Joe, where can we find you?
Simply search Google Average Joe's Joinery, and you'll find all my stuff on there.
Excellent. Chris?
Chris Cute on YouTube. Make the First Cut on Facebook.
And Alan, what about you, mate?
The Woodworking Junkie, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram.
Fantastic. And last, as always, Jamie?
You can find me on YouTube at JP Woodwork and Twitter and Instagram at JP_Woodwork.
Excellent. Fantastic. Great time tonight. Had a lot of fun. I hope you 4 have had a lot of fun, and I hope the listeners have enjoyed. I've been Rick Morley. Everyone's been everyone else. Come back next week for this crazy live Halloween thing, and we'll see you soon. Thanks a lot.
See you next week.
See you later.
Have a week.